Then
Good. How are
good,
you?
good. I think we'll wait just a moment for some more people to fill in, and then once we have a critical mass, we can get started.
Hey
Yeah.
Dan, in the meantime, I noticed there's at least one AI bot note taker that's accidentally been added to this meeting. There may be some more. Um, we usually remove those before
Okay.
started.
Yeah.
I don't have the power to. I think you'd have to as the host.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. It is not my note taker, but Shui, who is on, will help remove that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for the flag. Okay, let's just get a couple more people in. Let's see, Berto's came in. By council member.
Dan.
Hey,
Hey, Dan, Marty from DEP.
hey,
Anyway,
Marty.
you can long-term move me to this calendar invite, have me on, please. I just was able to
Yes, of
join
course.
my team.
Yeah, you didn't
Thank
get
you.
the calendar invite?
No, not on this one, but I appreciate you looping me for future ones.
Okay, yeah, yeah, sure thing. Sorry about that, Marty.
No problem at all, Dan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I think that we have a critical mass, and I can maybe pass it off to the senator to
Yeah,
get us
Dan,
started.
are we recording yet?
Yes.
Okay, great. Uh, all right, so yes, I'll just welcome everybody. This is the June 15th meeting of the Manhattan Detention Complex Construction and Demolition Working Group. This is a uh, meeting that is co-convened by my office, State Senator Brian Kavanagh, as well as Congressman Dan Goldman, Assemblymember Grace Lee, the Manhattan Borough President, Hoylman-Sigal, and Councilmember Chris Marte, as well as Manhattan Community Board 1. And of course, we have participation from the city team and various contractors and agents of the city. These meetings are recorded and posted online. And it's been about 2 months since we last met. Over the past couple of months, our office and the city team have been continuing to work closely with the community in preparation for construction at the site and to address ongoing issues and concerns. We understand there's still some ongoing concerns regarding environmental monitoring data and some safety issues that occurred at a related site, the Brooklyn Borough-Based-Jail site. So we'll probably have some discussion of those today. We also do have a very positive update, which is, we've talked in these meetings and in other contexts about getting an environmental monitor representing the community on board. And we've, through conversations with Deputy Mayor Curson and DDC Commissioner Ochoa, the city has confirmed that they'll be funding an independent monitor, and the process of getting the contract led and getting somebody selected is underway. And I think maybe the city can talk a little bit about what the scope of that will be at today's meeting. But that is, as I think everybody on the call here knows, has been a very useful aspect of this process in the past. So just, as a reminder, this for anyone who might be listening, the scope of this meeting is the issues related to construction of the site. There are other conversations that go on sometimes about alternatives to the site and, questions about the wisdom of this project in general, but this is not the forum for those. And let me just pause here, see if any of co-convening offices or my elected colleagues have any questions or any opening comments or notes.
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. I wanted to say thank you again, Senator Kavanaugh, for hosting this meeting. As the senator said, we have had some productive meetings with the city. I know the nonprofits of the adjacent Trunk Pack building had a meeting with the deputy mayor. Also, NUBC has met with the deputy mayor to talk about the alternative sites. While those discussions are happening, we're hearing on the ground that there's a lot of noise, especially early in the morning. And it's either waking up neighbors or being a disturbance. So hopefully that can be addressed, especially with the transportation of materials. And as we know, that's only going to get worse and more frequent as things move on. And so if we can address those early on, that would be great. But thank you, Brian, again for hosting this meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and for always, being here, active participant as well. Any other just opening comments? Okay, so without further ado, maybe I'll just turn it over to the city team to present the status.
Thank you, Senator Kavanagh, and thank you, Councilmember Marte as well. My name is Katerina Utami. I'm the Deputy Engagement Manager for the Borough-Based-Jail program. And opening this meeting today, I have the city team along with the design builder joining us in the call, and they will provide a little update about the construction activities that's currently going on. Definitely will cover the questions about the early deliveries that Councilmember Marte mentioned earlier. So I will hand it over to George from TPONG to start the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see everyone again. I appreciate you taking the time to walk through this with us today. We'll talk about a project schedule, give you a brief update on where we are, look at the project site, look at the planned work that's coming up this year, and of course, talk about community impacts and mitigation measures that we'll take. And of course, we'll look at some frequently asked questions, and then we'll get into Q&A. Just a real quick introduction. George Argyris with Tudor Perini and ONG, representing TDC and the sponsors. We have HOK as our design team here for the design build team. And of course, there's various sub-consultants under them. And on the other side, we have subcontractors that are actually doing the work on the ground. Looking at the project schedule, this is just a preliminary projection here. So right now we are obviously in June. We have secant pile driving that's ongoing. We'll get into the more details in just a few slides. Excavation, demo and removal of some of the old remnant foundations and extraction of piles. Start of caisson installation will be later in the year, and dewatering will also start later in the year. But big picture here, you can see we're projecting to be completed in 2032. The yellow highlights 2026, which will just be drilling of secant piles and excavation. As we get into 2028, we'll start our foundation work, and we'll start going vertical with our building structure towards the end of that year. And then enclosure will start the following year in 29, and the rest will be all interior and MEP work. Looking at the site, this is as of June 10th. You can see here highlighted are 2 drill rigs. These are the large pieces of equipment right now in operation, and they're installing secant piles. Along with that, there's support equipment. You can see here throughout the site, excavators and assist cranes in helping us get some of the preliminary works going. This is a more detailed look at some of these pieces of equipment. The drill rig is approximately 100 feet tall, which has the most prominent look here on the site. We have assist cranes and loaders and excavators. So those pieces of equipment will continue to be on site. In terms of deliveries, we have certainly casings, as you can see here, these metal tubes or cylinders that are used for secant piles. There's reinforcement bar. Certainly there's concrete being delivered to site. Mentioned earlier some of the early deliveries, which we appreciate that impact to the community. These were for some oversized deliveries of equipment, such as the drill rigs. These times are really stipulated by DOT, and what time really these overload or oversized loads can go through bridges and certain roadways. So we are really constrained by those stipulations. So we'll get more into detail in just a moment. Looking at the current site as it stands, we have our project site fence in red along Center Street and Baxter. We also have the courthouse interim Sally Port here that you can see in gold color. We're working closely with the court.
You're back.
Coordinating traffic along Center, and the green just shows the pedestrian traffic. But more importantly, here on the next slide, you're going to see our proposed site conditions. We will be adjusting the fencing and the gate near the northeast area of the job, where we're right next to the chunk pack building, just to accommodate some of the requests that we've been getting to move the gate further south and away from their building. So you can see here how the gate is shifted towards the south. This will be put into place as soon as Con Ed wraps up some of their work in this area. We're still working to get some confirmation from them on the timing of that work, but should be well within this year at the very worst case, late summer. So we'll keep you updated as we get informed by Con Ed on the completion of that work, and then we'll adjust that site fence there. Moving down here, just what we've completed to date in the past year. As we mobilized last year, we relocated our site fence. We did some exploratory work for substructures. We also did some geotechnical testing and borings, test pits, just criteria to validate our design as we're continuing with that effort. We did do some cut and capping of existing utilities on both Center and Baxter, surveying, of course, and Con Ed has been very busy in completing their work within our site and around our site. We have installed monitoring equipment, which we'll get to in just a moment, and removal of some of the old foundation elements from the previous building. So for 2026, you can see here in the orange shading, this is just some of the early works that started in April to start removing some of the old foundations. The light green is the secant wall, which is that those big drill rigs are doing right now. And I'll explain to you what that consists of. This is an important topic that's been raised is, are we impacting the chunk pack foundation? So just for clarity here, you can see in green is the chunk pack foundation that will not be removed or modified. In the blue is the section of foundation from the previous building, which we will not modify. That will stay as well. And in the yellow are elements that we are actually removing. And these are elements from the previous detention building that we need to get out of the way so we can actually place our foundation there. So right now, as of May, we started drilling. You can see here in the blue, the areas of drilling, these secants, which are really elements for the dewatering operation. They basically go in as individual piles down to rock, and then they create a wall. And I'll show you a visual for that in just a moment. This is as of right now. Once we get later in the year, around Q3 of 26, those secant pile operations will have progressed towards the south, and we'll then start installing caissons, which in layman's terms, they're very similar to the secants. They are long tubes that are anchoring into bedrock, and those, the only difference is these are part of the foundation. They basically anchor the building into bedrock to eliminate any type of influence from wind or any other loads in the building. So that work will continue later in the year. Here's an important topic, which is dewatering. You can see here in the gray, the secant wall, which is now being placed, and these are going in in cylinders drilled all the way to bedrock. We are anchoring into bedrock and then filling those with concrete. And that creates this barrier around the site, which enables us to maintain the water table as it is outside of the site limits, and then within inside of the site limits, water down to a certain elevation where we can actually place concrete. These secant walls are braced, as you can see here in the orange or peach color. So those will be installed later in 2027 as we get deeper into the ground. And we plan to start this dewatering in early 2027. We'll start to do some exploratory work, setting some baselines of where the water tables are for our monitoring towards the end of the year. But in order to start this work, we have to get all the secants in place before we start dewatering. Here's some more information here. A little bit more into the theoretical of the dewatering system. So we'll have pumps that are operating continuously to do water within inside the site limits. We'll be monitoring those levels continuously. We have certain parameters that we need to stay within, which we'll also get to in a minute. But this is a pretty simplified version of what will be happening out there. We do have some additional work that will be happening outside of the site. It's relocation of fire hydrants. One is here on Baxter, about halfway up our site. We'll shift that across the street. And the other one is here on Center, which will shift north. And the reason why these need to be relocated is to allow for certain utilities, other utilities to come in, and to avoid any conflicts with our equipment that will be conducting all our early works. There will be shutdowns that will be required for these operations for the water. And of course, we'll give you a heads up of when those shutdowns will be happening. Some additional work to facilitate our project is traffic light relocation. This is along Center Street. You can see here to the left the current configuration. We'll have to remove the actual support pole here from the right, and then the traffic light will be added here to the current western post. Pretty straightforward. This plan is actually with DOT right now under review, and we should be expecting an approval in the short future before we start this work. Lastly, regarding DOT items, we will be relocating a light pole here along Center. You can see it's within our site fence line. We'll relocate, we'll actually replace it with a new light pole here on the opposite side of the street to maintain the light as required by DOT standards. Lastly, this is the courthouse to our north. So in the future, the Sally Port for the Manhattan facility will be wedged right between the courthouse and the new facility. So to make that, to accommodate that requirement, we are going to replace this old emergency egress that is currently right here on this corner with a new location along Baxter. To give you a better sense of that, here's a street view. So this is the previous or existing location, and this will be the new location. And to minimize the amount of work here and disturbance, we are going to be using an existing window where we're going to replace half of that with a new door, which will look something along these lines. You can see here the color scheme is really going to match what's in the existing building. This has gone through the PDC already, and we have received positive feedback from them as well. And right now we're with DOB in the permitting phase for this work. Looking at some of the community impacts, of course, site safety is very important to us. So we're going to be implementing training to anybody that comes on the site not just the workers, but any management, any visitors. Everybody gets an orientation before they go onto the site. And of course, we're going to be promoting this positive safety culture throughout. Moving on to our monitoring plan. As everybody's aware, we have a transit tunnel right adjacent to our Manhattan facility. So through our engineer of record, there was a monitoring plan that was put in place for the tunnel. So there's vibration, there's movement, monitors there. So those have been in place. It's been approved by a transit. It has been approved by DOB. So that monitoring is in fact in place. So that's one aspect of our monitoring. Secondly, adjacent buildings, very important. We have a vibration, movement, monitoring, just as we do in the tunnel. There's certain criteria that have been set by the engineer of record, where we first would get an alert with the initial threshold for vibration is 1/4 inch per second. This is measures acceleration of movement. Once we have an initial alert, we investigate that area. If we do go within the limit, we'll pause work in that area, investigate, take any mitigation measures we need to take. Same with movement, same concept here. We have certain criteria that are set. For landmark or historic buildings, the criteria is a little tighter on the limit, just because of the structural sensitivity there. And we have the 0.5 inch for non-landmark buildings. Noise monitoring, of course, we're following NYC Administrative Code. For the daytime work hours is 85 decibels, and for the after hours is 75. Same practice here. If we do go within the limits, we'll investigate that area of work. If it continues, we'll pause the work and we'll look at any mitigation measure we can take in that area. Similarly, we have dust monitoring, certain criteria here. We are looking at PM10, which monitors the level of granularity of the particles in the air. There's two: alert and limit. So we'll investigate what's going on if we get near the alert or if we get any complaints. If we get within the limit or above the limit, we'll certainly look at pausing the work in that area and looking at reworking or mitigating that work. Lastly, here we have groundwater monitoring. This is to go along with our dewatering operations, which will start next year. And these are limits, alerts and limits that have been really established with MTA standards and our engineer of record. So just as we're monitoring all the other areas, we'll be monitoring groundwater levels as well. These are just some samples of the devices. Vibration monitoring, crack gauges. Crack gauges are installed throughout the surrounding buildings. They measure if there's already cracks that are in place. They measure the type of movement, if there's any. Noise monitor, pretty straightforward. The automated total stations, or AMTSs, communicate with these optical prisms continuously, and they monitor movement. So those are located throughout the buildings surrounding our site, and we also have dust monitors. To go along with that, we have handheld devices that measure dust and noise. So we're doing measurements throughout the day to make sure that we're not going over the regulated limits. This map here shows you the level of monitoring that we have in place. There's a multitude here of types of sensors, as we mentioned. Starting out, as we just talked about, the monitoring wells, those will be measuring groundwater levels. So you can see they're dispersed around the site, and they're also north and east of the chunk back building. Dust mitigation. So we have various measures here. We are spraying the soil, the dirt that's throughout the site. or applicable, we use dirt glue. The advantage of dirt glue is it does a really good job of maintaining or holding back the soil if there's no traffic over it. So we're applying it to areas where trucks or equipment are not rolling over it. In that case, we're doing sprinkling. We are covering and securing loads. We're doing wheel wash stations. So certainly we don't take any of that soil outside of the site. Moving on to the next. Noise mitigation measures. As we mentioned, we have sound blankets that are along our site fences. We have already installed along chunk pack some sound blankets as well. This is to minimize any noise attenuating from the equipment that's drilling adjacent to it. So we also use barriers with sound blankets that are next to certain drilling equipment. So we're trying to do as much as feasibly possible here. Here's a good example of the additional barriers with the sound blankets that are put next to the pieces of equipment, kind of like a secondary level of protection there. Of course, any concerns, any complaints, or if you see any dust or noise, you can call CCL office, and they'll certainly elevate that to us, and we'll investigate and try to mitigate it as soon as possible. Some frequently asked questions. Reporting. So to date, we have started preparing reports from February onwards. We wanted to start ahead of our construction work to kind of troubleshoot and make sure that our systems are in line. For February and March, we noticed some gaps in some of the data, and that was due to some of the batteries going out. So we have remedied those issues. We have added bigger battery packs and have some redundant power to those pieces of equipment. So from April, May, and onwards, we were able to mitigate those issues, and that will continue on a monthly basis. Dust monitors, there's certainly 6 static locations where we're monitoring dust and noise as well. But we also have the hand monitors, as we mentioned earlier. So we have our staff out there taking measurements throughout the day to make sure that we're within our limits. Dust exceedances. This question pertains to the dust going above the level. So really, if there's any issue with dust, we will try to do some additional spraying. And if there's any downwind dust, we'll certainly look at pausing work if the issue becomes continuous for that. And noise exceedances, we are measuring 85 dBA at 20-minute LEQ. Those notifications get sent to a set of construction managers and project managers where we make the decision. If we go over, we pause the work, we investigate and look at what we can do to mitigate that. Adjacent building monitoring, of course, we have north and south. We have the chunk pack building to the south. We have the courthouse. They have vibration monitors, tilt monitors, optical monitors, all to measure any type of influence that might happen from our construction. And of course, there's other properties that are within 90 feet or so that have these monitoring in place as well, both the vibration and the opticals. Another question is monitoring a chunk pack, which I just kind of touched on. We do have these sensors in there. We are looking at this information constantly on our dashboards. Frequently asked questions about unexpected subsurface conditions. To date, we have not found any archaeological or VOCs as we're excavating. We have found some unexpected subsurface conditions relating to old foundations, but not related to archaeological or environmental. Regarding dewatering contamination, So our initial investigations on the site did not come up with any type of environmental concerns, which is what we submitted to DP for a dewatering plan. Based on that review, the DP recommended or required that we use the settling tanks. These settling tanks really allow some of the solids that might come up as we're pulling water out and any oils to separate, and really the water that's being discharged is without any of those elements. So we'll open up to any questions.
Great, thanks. So yeah, if folks could use the hand raising feature, and you know, some people have put there have been a few questions in the chat. I'm gonna maybe ask if people can just ask those for the benefit
Sure.
of. So Jan, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, you know, I had put in the chat that there's been a recent history of 3 stop work orders in Brooklyn. We have a history of the Yodoc fences falling down, both from Gramercy and also at the Brooklyn site from this contractor. That's a failure to simply follow directions of the manufacturer and also city code, that these things should be filled with water. And for those who don't know, a motorcyclist was almost killed because the Tudor Perini fences fell on top of him during the most recent windstorm. If the city is going to allow 3 incidents of fences falling down, which are obviously critical oversights, what is the threshold by the city that finally says that we have to, you know, really look harder at this? And what are the citations, and have those citations been recorded? One of the violations for the stop work order is that Tudor Perini is not even self-reporting. We also saw that with Gramercy. So my question is, after looking through this very intense and very dangerous thing that they're about to embark upon in our neighborhood, if they're not filling containers with water to keep them from falling over, and a man was almost killed, how are we to trust the agencies, DDC, the contractor, the monitors? They're not even filling a container with water, and you're going to trust these people with drilling 100 feet down into the soil, and one of the most difficult, one of the most challenging sites. You can understand how the community in Brooklyn and Manhattan are frightened. We're scared. We are really not trusting this entire system. So somebody please enlighten me about when the city is going to get serious about protecting this community.
Hey, Jen. Senator Kavanagh, if I may respond to Jen's question. Jen, I also saw your questions on the chat and have taken notes of your questions as well. The DDC worked very closely with DOB, and for the instances in Brooklyn, DOB was immediately notified, and the DB was dispatch crews to repair and secure the fence on the same night. But I also want to defer this question to George. I know that you have worked and also notice these instances. Can you share with us what is the mitigation of how you secure the site fence in Manhattan site?
My question would be, did you follow any directions, George? Or you just ignore the manufacturer's directions and the city codes?
So we have all our our Yodocs are filled with water, and they're also pinned to we have alternating pinnings that we have with our Yodocs in Manhattan, specific to Manhattan. So we have right now remedied that in terms of Manhattan.
My question was whether or not you follow manufacturer's directions. We're about to embark on something that is way more dangerous than filling a container with water. Do you follow directions? Do you self-report? And also, are these things like fences that fall, are they in your logbooks?
Yes, Jan. We have, in terms of specific to Manhattan, any incidents, of course, we self-report and we report up to DDC. But in terms of specific to the fence, it is in fact filled, the Yodocs are filled with water, and we do go the extra mile in pinning them to the actual ground.
I just want to say that Senator, this is incredibly frightening because this contractor is working on 2 sites. It has one of the worst OSHA violation records in New York City. They pale by comparison to any of the large builders in America. And I just cannot emphasize enough that this needs to be stopped until we get a handle on whether or not a contractor that's about to dig 100-foot holes into the ground and within a few feet from residences can be trusted with simply following manufacturer's instructions and city code. You know, I'm great that the Manhattan one is filled after it fell down. And after the stop work orders were issued in Brooklyn, somebody's finally getting on top of this. But you understand my community's concern over this. What oversights can we be assured if this contractor has a history nationwide of violating OSHA and safety violations?
George, do you want to respond further?
No, I just, we appreciate the question. In terms of Manhattan specifically, we were following the manufacturer's directions, and we've had water in these geoducts for months now. So
I mean, maybe Jeff can enlighten us from DDC how we're about to move forward on this, because this is very, very, very concerning.
Yeah, I was going to say somebody from the city. Yeah, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. Yes. So thank you, Jen, for your question. We have learned some lessons from Brooklyn, obviously. The gentleman that you referred to, hopefully he's all right. It's our understanding he's okay. I do think that the city article is a little bit skewed. As you know, sometimes we can't fully respond to the media inquiries. But George is here to address those concerns. Obviously, things do occur on construction sites, but I think TPO&G, has really put out a thorough plan that you just saw to really try and mitigate those impacts. The instance in Brooklyn occurred during a high wind event, which they had prepared for, and I think it's a good lesson learned that George will be extra diligent in Manhattan. We also, as Katerina mentioned, DOB was on site right away. They're doing proactive safety checks in Brooklyn, and we expect that to start in Manhattan as well. So there are city oversights that are paying attention to this. DEP is on, DOT, etc. So we do think we have the right protections in place to ensure that the community is safe and this project continues safely.
Jeff, I mean, how does the city view these incidents in terms of, are there consequences, reviews,
all of the above? Yes. So
penalties,
So we have gone specifically in Brooklyn, we have gone floor by floor working with the contractor there. I don't want to, George is part of the same company, but it's obviously a different team. So it's not the same personnel, but we've gone floor by floor to identify where, the DDC site safety people feel there needs to be improvement. DOB obviously walked floor by floor. Anytime that TPC is delayed, they are incurring costs that they are not compensated for. And then, DOB is the ultimate arbiter as in terms of, putting a stop work order if necessary.
Well, Jan has expressed it very eloquently, but obviously, as he noted, this is a very complicated project that's raised just a lot of safety concerns for a lot of people over a long period now. So, and yes, probably getting the fencing and the barriers right is the least of, like, in terms of the technical difficulty. And so I would just urge the city and, the contractors and everybody on site to make sure that we're addressing these things and, try to minimize the likelihood that we have even small incidents, I think, are going to continue to erode confidence of the community.
Completely understand. Yes.
Okay, and then Jan, you had a question about safety, about whether stuff is published or incident reports. How can you I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but can you just talk about how how are reports about these things made available to the community, to the elected officials, to the community board?
Sure. So there's a couple levels of oversight. So anytime there's an incident, any DDC job, we have our own internal protocols where uh, an email is sent to the relevant safety folks at DDC, including commissioner, myself, and other folks. And then the DDC site safety team has the ability to investigate, send an inspector. There are certain classifications, maybe George can help me, when an injury needs to be reported to DOB or OSHA. And I know that was the source of the city article again, some of which we respectfully disagree with. So there's that oversight. And then obviously when incidents are occurring, we can let the folks know. SHU is always available if someone sees something. We've been working closely with Councilmember Ressler in Brooklyn to alert him and his community when issues do arise. So we can figure out what that protocol looks like here in Manhattan.
Senator, I have a question. We assume that before the Brooklyn site was surrounded with barriers, that there was a site safety plan that was submitted to DDC, ACOM, everybody involved in the city agencies, including DOT. We assume that those were read. We assume that the city is looking out for pedestrians, and we assume that these fences are supposed to withstand 80 miles an hour according to city code. You know, that storm had barely a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and yet these fell down. So at what point does it break down where which we foiled for this safety plan, by the way? At what point are we submitting safety plans from these contractors only to have them not inspected and not looked at and not followed through? Because otherwise, if they were filled with water, they wouldn't fall over. They were not pinned in Brooklyn. So at what point do these safety protocols matter if no one's looking at them? How are we going to proceed when we are looking at seniors living next door to this, or we're looking at pedestrians, and we're looking at people on an active street like Baxter Street or Center Street that has 150 doctor's offices, or CPC, which is next door for the daycare center? At what point, Jeff, do these things matter when they're submitted to your office if no one from your office goes to check to see if they're filled with water? I mean, this is a very basic thing. This is not hyperbole. Someone fucked up. How did it happen? Who's answering to that? What is the protocol moving forward? I'm glad that they're pinned in Manhattan, but that's only because they fell during Gramercy. At what point do you guys really want to look after us?
George, I don't know if you can speak to that specific incident. I remember it a few months ago. I believe the mesh was sort of aiding in was acting as almost a sail, if I'm saying that correctly. I don't know if you can speak to that particular
Jeff,
Yodoc
respectfully, it was directed at you. The safety protocols that are put out, they're filed with your department. Nobody went to go look to see if they were followed, and something fell down. A man was almost killed. Previous to this in Brooklyn, a man was killed. What does it take for the city to get serious about safety? We're at the point now where we're embarking on the most dangerous part of this project here in Manhattan. At what point do we count on you guys to look out that we're not going to be killed?
Jenna, obviously, it goes without saying that safety is essential on all of our jobs. Obviously, things did occur in Brooklyn. We have triple checked that things are in a better place in Brooklyn. And as I said, there are a lot of lessons learned that we're taking from Brooklyn to Manhattan. So the wind incident from the other night, that was a very heavy storm. Again, it could have been prepared better, the Yodoc, but obviously something happened that didn't take place. We do have a robust safety team here. They do not have the ability to go check every single Yodoc, however.
That doesn't make me feel good, Jeff.
I understand what you're.
Having an excuse that you're understaffed does not make us feel good.
That is not how
make us feel good that you don't have enough staff to go look at these barriers.
We develop a site safety plan that the contractor is required to follow. If things occur, we address them as they come up. We do our best. If you have
enough staff.
Again, there's many levels of oversight here. The consultant team also has site safety inspectors that are there every day. I don't know why in particular they didn't check that particular Yodoc, but again, we're trying to take those lessons learned from Brooklyn.
It wasn't one.
To Manhattan.
this fell and almost killed him. And Senator, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for this
Yeah, no,
opportunity.
and just obviously ongoing conversation to the extent there are, reports or explanations of how some of these incidents are occurring. I think it would be worthwhile to just share some more of the specifics. And
Yes.
yeah, we just obviously a lot of people, Jen is speaking for a lot of people in our community. So, to be continued, but, and thank you both, George and Jeff, for your answers. And Katerina as well. Other questions? There are a couple other things in the chat, but people have Alice, I think you're up next.
Thanks, Senator, and thanks all involved here. And thank you in advance. This team is coming, in fact, to our board, Community Board 1 at the Environmental Protection Committee tonight to speak about health impacts, along with getting a report from NYU health team. Anyway, I just had a question. You mentioned, it was interesting to me, the sort of motion monitor regarding landmarks and non-landmarks, a quarter of an inch and a half an inch, I think it was. Are you considering the criminal court building in 100 Center Street a landmark? I mean, I recognize it's not a city landmark, but though it has been identified as one that should be, in terms of getting a request for an evaluation at some point, 7 years in the offing. I'm just curious where this building sits and your understanding.
Good morning, Alice, or good afternoon. The courthouse is not being measured to the landmark threshold.
And why not?
It's just following the LPC guidelines. So basically, the structures along Baxter are, but the courthouse doesn't fall in that category. But certainly, we are monitoring it just as carefully. It doesn't, just because the threshold is different, it doesn't mean it gets any less attention.
It seems odd, given that the state has recognized it on its list for resources of historic preservation, and that the city itself has committed to that at some point, we don't know when, to review this for landmarking. So I think it's odd that it's not, given the significance of the building, a little bit, reconsidered. Anyway, additionally, would it be possible if you could let the community board know when there are reviews, such as the PDC for the courthouse egress? I was unaware that was occurring. If that's something that, I assume it appears on your website perhaps or something, but if you could just notify the board, if you haven't already, on those kinds of issues, that would be helpful. That's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great. Next up, Ed Puccia. Ed, are you with us?
Yes, sorry about that. Sorry, it took me a minute to click the button. There you go, folks. Changing the subject a bit, and thank you, Senator. Thank you, Grace Lee. Thank you, Chris, Marte, and all the electeds that are here. Raising an issue I raised, I think, at the last meeting was monetary compensation, and I must disclose this is somewhat selfish, for the folks, the tenants, both commercial and residential, in the Chung Pak building. Last time I mentioned this, we were promised millions by Margaret Chin. I certainly have not seen a penny. My office was forced to move out of Chung Pak at significant expense. And I'm wondering if there's been any follow-up. I've heard nothing.
Hey, Edward, we have here Jacob Russell from City Hall, who may be able to answer your question.
Oh, please. Okay, good. Margaret Chin promised us millions in rent concessions and in, I don't know what you call it, in money to us, and we've received nothing. And I'm just wondering, when do we get the money? This is speaking both on my behalf as a former tenant of Chung Pak, on all the current tenants of Chung Pak, both commercial and residential.
Hi, yes, sorry. I'm trying to get my camera on here. We use Teams in our office, so for some reason Zoom is always weird. So I apologize about that. Yes, so the main thing I guess I'd touch on first is the rental assistance to Chung Pak. I'm not familiar with the previous obligations, comments, but we can definitely look into those. You said it was by Margaret Chin.
Yes, I can send you the press releases that she put out and the reports that she said. Millions were mentioned. We've seen nothing.
Yes.
It's been years now, and I'm getting tired.
That would definitely be helpful if you can send those comments. I think in terms of what the commitments that the administration has made and the points of agreement, I know that, the millions that may be mentioned is that there is, rental abatement to the building. The city is giving an ongoing rental abatement to the Chung Pak building. And then there was also relocation assistance offered to the small businesses that were located in the former NBC site. Also, sorry, can you hear me better now? Apologies. So yes, I was saying that there was rental abatement to Chung Pak as per Manhattan POA item number 16. And then there was also rental assistance provided to the residential units that were in the former MDC under the old jail facility. So that is our understanding, but if there are previous comments made by Councilmember Chin, we're happy to take a look at those and we can circle back.
Please put your email in the chat and I'll send it to you again. I've done this a few times already. We'll do it again.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Do you want to just make sure you just share with the elected officials also anything you're going to send?
Sure. Definitely do that.
I think we've seen some of this stuff before, but just
yeah.
we're all on
The
the same
easiest,
page.
it's if you recall Matt Fenton from the broadsheet, the Battery Park City broadsheet had done a nice report about it, and that's the easiest way to send it over. I'll do that. I'll send a copy of his report. Sure, I'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Great.
Senator, if I may interrupt, apologies. I just want to make a correction. So the courthouse the monitoring is to landmark standards. I was just informed. So just to address Alice's question.
Thank you. That makes a lot more sense. Thanks.
Good. I really appreciate that. Other questions or comments? We have about 8 minutes left in our scheduled time together.
Senator, I have a question from Rachel on the chat, questioning about the monitors. George, if you can address what is your mitigation for the power of the monitors and make sure you have continuous data of the monitoring?
Sure. So we have implemented bigger battery packs as these monitors are working off of solar power. We have backup power there. So we have increased the size of those battery packs and have additional battery packs readily available in case there is an outage. We just replace it right then and there.
So just to follow up and make sure I'm hearing what I'm hearing, in previous reports where it has been shown as -0 or -0, it was because a battery died?
I would like to see the specific reports, but generally, yes, that's what happens is there will be an outage of power.
And there's no alert to show that it needs to get replaced within a reasonable amount of time, not like 48 hours later?
It's unfortunately we have a monitor, an actual person there monitoring, and we make sure that now they are there. There's no human error, in fact, there. So right now they're checking the battery levels continuously daily to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, maybe just to ensure when you say regularly to have it's either once a day, twice a day, just so that we have more assurance that these monitors are doing its job.
It's at minimum once a day, at minimum.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny that they don't automatically, like in the manner of a smoke detector when the battery is going low, let you know that the batteries are going low, but which can be annoying but useful information. Alice, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, sorry, my apologies. I wanted to ask, when is the independent monitor being engaged, given the fact that on your construction report, you're well into what you've described here, an excavation sequence, some pretty consequential construction. When will that begin, that independent monitoring?
Hi, Alice. I think I can take that question. The city right now is working as expeditiously as possible to do the procurement process. We're still in procurement process. And as soon as we have the team onboarded, we will share the updates with you and the community as well.
Well, could you give a little bit more of a specific time frame what you're dealing with? Are we talking this summer? I mean, work is underway, so it does seem,
Yes, our goal
something
is,
pretty critical
yes, Alice, our goal is to onboard the team this summer
this
for
summer.
Manhattan. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and this is a city procurement, or the contractor is doing it on behalf of the city?
DDC is working with
Yeah,
HGB on this procurement.
it's not the typical process. They're hired as a sub to our team.
Right, but the understanding is that there'll be the kind of independence we've come to expect from that function, right? Okay, and just, I mean, not to be, I don't know, too particular here, but the summer starts in 6 days, and 96 days from today, it's still the summer. Do you have? I mean, is there a ballpark when? I recognize you have to go through a process and select somebody, but is there a ballpark when you think like a little more precise estimate of when we might have somebody on?
Early next month is our goal.
Early July.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. All right, we appreciate it. Any other? We've got 4 minutes left in our scheduled time. I'm sure everybody could find something useful to do with their 4 minutes. But any final questions or comments before we go?
Senator, I do have a question. Sorry, I can't raise my hand for some reason.
No problem. Go ahead, Becky.
Yeah, so I did have a question around the timelines. That's been about the independent monitor, so that was answered. DCTV, it has flagged that their monitoring was removed, but they are a landmark building and they're supposed to receive monitoring. So I want to understand when that's going to be reinstalled for them.
Good afternoon, Vic. Let me confirm that and get back to you. I was not aware of that. Get with my team and see what the status is there.
Okay, great. I'll follow up with you because I know they're quite upset about that.
Yeah, is there any? I mean, is there some circumstance in which the monitoring would be removed? That seems odd.
My assumption is they were removed from the previous dismantlement. I just want to make sure that we were able to get access. But I would rather confirm before I answer with our group.
Okay, so yeah, if you could just make sure you loop all of us in on our sunset. That's
Sure.
important to get that right. Okay, good. So if we have no further questions or comments, I'll just end by thanking everyone for your participation and some tough Q&A today, but we do want to make sure that we're providing the greatest level of attention to these issues as we can. And we will be in touch about scheduling the next meeting. And as always, there'll be meaningful engagement along the way. So again, thank you all, and we'll get updates out to people as we get them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.